Hello, students. Hope you all are doing great. Today, we are going to start concept 5 of Getting to Know Plants chapter. In this concept, we will discuss about parts of a flower and their functions. So, children, let's get started. Children, we all know that flowers are the most beautiful part of a plant, and different plants have different types of flowers. Flowers are of many sizes, shapes, and colors, and also they have beautiful fragrance. So let's discuss more about flowers. Dear children, there are four main parts of a flower: sepals, petals, stamens, and pistil. And children, they are arranged in rings or whorls. The first whorl is of green sepals, then the second whorl is of colorful petals, third whorl is of stamen, and the fourth whorl is of pistil. Okay, we will discuss about all these parts one by one in detail. Children, first let us discuss about pedicel. What is pedicel? Children, the flower is attached to a stem by a stalk called pedicel. This part is the pedicel. Okay, this is the part by which the flower is attached to the stem. Okay. Now, what is thalamus? Children, above the pedicel, the tip of the pedicel is swollen, and this is known as thalamus. The uppermost part of the stalk or pedicel is somewhat swollen, and this swollen part of pedicel is called thalamus or receptacle. So, the swollen part of the pedicel is known as thalamus or receptacle. Children, now let us discuss about the other parts in detail. First part is sepals. What are sepals? Children, sepals are the green leaf-like structure at the base of the flower. This green leaf-like structure at the base of the flower, they are known as sepals. Children, function of sepal is that it protects the flower during its development and supports the petals when the flower blooms. Okay, so this green leaf like part is known as sepals, and it protects the flower at its bud stage, we can say that. Okay, now the next part is children petals, which is in the second wall. Children, petals, they are the colored part of the flower. They are brightly colored due to the presence of colored pigment. And children, petals together are known as corolla. Okay? Petals together are known as corolla. Children, this bright color of the petals serve to attract insect which help in pollination. Children, we will discuss about pollination in detail in the next slides. So, I hope you have understood what are petals. They are the colored part of the flower, and together petals are known as corolla, and they are brightly colored due to the presence of colored pigments, and this helps to attract the insect for pollination. Children, you can see these are the petals, and together they are known as corolla. Now, children, what are sessile flowers? Okay, children, there are some flowers that do not have pedicel. Okay, you can see in this picture. This in this flower, the pedicel is missing. These flowers are known as sessile flowers. Okay, the flowers which do not have pedicel, and the example is saffron. So you have to remember the example is saffron, children. And the flowers that have pedicel are called pedicellate flowers. Normally, all the flowers have pedicel. For example, rose, hibiscus, etc. So, the flowers which do not have pedicel are known as sessile flowers, and the flowers which have pedicel are known as pedicellate flowers. Now, children, the another part of the flower, it is stamens. What are stamens, children? They are generally 4 to 6 in number in each flower. They are the male reproductive part of the flower, children. They are the male reproductive part. You have to remember this. They are the male reproductive part, and each stamen is divided into anther and filament, children. Each stamen is divided into anther and filament. You have to remember this. And this is the structure of stamen. Children, what is anther? It is the head of the stamen, okay? And it is responsible for producing the pollen grains, okay? So, anther is the head of stamen. It is responsible for producing pollen grains and it has two lobes. So, you have to remember this. What is filament? You can see this part. Each stamen consists of a thin stalk. The stalk is called filament. Okay, so let us just recall everything what we studied about stamen. Children, stamen, they are the male reproductive part of the flower, and they are further divided into two parts, anther and filament. Anther is the head of the stamen and is responsible for producing pollen grains. Okay, and children, then we have this filament, which is the thin stalk called uh, thin stalk attached to the anther. Okay, what are pollen grains, children? Pollen grains are the fine dust-like particles which contains the male sex cells of the flowering plant. You have to remember that. They are the yellowed fine dust-like particles which contain the male sex cells of the flowering plant. Okay, so pollen grains are the yellow fine dust-like particles which contain the male sex cells of the flowering plant. So you have to remember this, children. And the main function of anther of a flower is to produce the pollen grains. Okay, so I hope it is clear to you all. Children, now let us discuss about pistil. Children, what is pistil? See, children, in the center of a flower there is a flask-shaped organ. This is known as pistil. See how it looks like. This pistil is the female reproductive part of a flower. This is the female reproductive part of the flower. Okay. And again, pistil has three parts, children. The topmost part is known as stigma. Then again there is the stalk-like structure which is known as style, and a swollen end which is known as ovary. Children, stigma, this is found at the tip of the style as you can see in the picture, and it forms the head of the pistil. Children, it contains a sticky substance whose job is to catch the pollen grains from the anther. Okay, and when the pollen grains stick to the stigma, this is carried to the ovary through this style. Okay, So, children, we will learn about this in detail in fertilization part. But you need to understand that pistil is the female reproductive part of a flower, and it has three main parts: stigma, style, and ovary. Stigma contains a sticky substance on which the pollen grain sticks, and this is carried to the ovary through the style. Okay, and you can see the style is a long cylinder stalk like structure. Ovary, that is the base of the pistil. Okay, and ovary contains ovules. What are ovules, children? Ovules, these are the egg cells of the flower. Okay, so earlier we have learned that pollen grains, they are the male sex cells of the flower, and ovules are the, we can also say, female sex cells or the egg cells of the flower, and it is found in the ovary, inside the ovary. Okay, I hope it is clear to you all. Children, you can see the entire structure of the flower where every part is marked here. You can see the receptacle, that is the thalamus. This is sepal, this is stigma, style, and this one is ovary containing ovules. This one is anther, and this is filament. Children, these are the petals. So, children, these you should remember the diagram, and also you should be able to identify various parts. So you can observe any flower in your locality and just see whether you can locate all the parts of the flower or not. Children, in now let me just tell you, children, in some plants, the stamens are joined to pistil. Like you can see in this flower, this is the stamen, the thin structures are stamens, and the center one is pistil. So the stamens are joined to the pistil, and the example of such flower is hibiscus, which is also known as China rose. Okay, so in this flower, you can see the stamens are joined to the pistil. Okay, so please remember this. Now, children, let us see what are bisexual flowers and what are unisexual flowers. Okay, children, the flowers which have both stamens and pistil are called bisexual flowers. If stamens and pistils are present in the same flower, then it is bisexual flower. For example, like mustard and China rose, that is bisexual flower, which have both the stamens and pistils. But the flower which have either pistil or stamens, that is, some flowers will have either male reproductive part, or female reproductive part. They are known as unisexual flowers. Children, some examples are like the flowers in cucumber and bottle gourd. They are unisexual flowers which have either pistil or stamens. Okay, so I hope it is clear to you all that the bisexual flowers are the flower which have both stamens and pistil. That is both male and female reproductive part. Whereas the unisexual flowers are the flowers which have either pistil or stamens. Okay. Example of bisexual flowers are mustard and China rose, and that of unisexual flowers are cucumber and bottle gourd. Children, now let us discuss about the functions of flowers. Children, okay. Children, the main function of a flower is to produce fruits and seeds. This is the main function, to produce fruits and seeds. The fruits and seeds, they are formed in the flower only by the process of pollination and fertilization. So we will discuss about pollination and fertilization in detail. Let us see what is pollination and what is fertilization. Children, you all have studied just now about pollen grains, okay, and also you know about the ovules or the female sex cells. So, what is pollination, children? This is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to stigma of a pistil. Okay, so this is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of a pistil is called pollination. That means the transfer of pollen grains from the male reproductive part of a flower to the female reproductive part, that is the pistil. This is known as pollination. You can see here in this picture how it is happening. And this is done by either by insects or by wind or by water. Okay. So you can see here that how the pollen grains are transferred from one flower to the stigma of the another flower. Okay. And then it will reach to the ovary through the style. Okay, so this transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of a pistil is called pollination, and it is done by insects, wind, and water. Children, when the insect sits on the flower, the pollen grains stick to the body and may get rubbed off when it sits on another flower. That is how pollination happens. Children, the agents we all know it of pollination are insects, wind, or water. So I hope you have understood that the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a pistil is called pollination. Now let us discuss about fertilization. What is fertilization? Children, the fusion of male and female sex cells is called fertilization. We all know that pollen grains are the male sex cells and ovules are the female sex cells. So when they fuse together, this is known as fertilization. What happens here, children? Like after pollination, when pollen grains fall on the stigma, they move down here like this and reach this ovary. You can see they reach the ovary. Inside the ovary, the male sex cells which is present in pollen grains fuses with the female sex cells that is present in ovule, and this fusion of male and female sex cells is called fertilization. Okay, children. So you can see this fusion of male and female sex cell is known as fertilization. What will happen after fertilization, children? The ovules grow and become seed, and the ovary of a flower grows and becomes the fruit. So you have to remember this, that the ovules will become the seed and ovary of a flower grows and becomes fruit with seeds inside it. So you have to remember that ovule grows into seed and ovary of a flower grows and becomes fruit. Children, I hope you have understood about fertilization, that it is the fusion of male and female sex cells. Okay, and after fertilization, ovule grows and becomes seeds and ovary grows and becomes fruit. Children, that's all for this concept. For any doubts, you can ask me in the live class. There are some questions which you can solve boldly, like you have to, or you can even draw the diagram in your notebook, the structure of flower, and label its part. What happens to the ovule and ovary after fertilization, and differentiate between a bisexual and a unisexual flower, and what is pollination. That's all for the day, children. Thank you so much. Have a good day.